What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Billy Collins.
MATJ.
This is Magician.
And the Jock.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Woo, the first was amazing.
Last episode we did all the kind of the lead up.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about when you had to pay the piper.
Can I say something first?
Go ahead.
Billy, you have an amazing haircut, man. You have an amazing haircut. Just want to say that.
It's, thanks to Young Jock.
What?
Oh, Lord.
You don't like the weatherman?
Yeah, sir. You like a weatherman. So, yeah, paying the Pied Piper, man.
I think today, and he lays a lot of this stuff out in the book. We keep referencing it. Guys, pick it up. It's a page turner. You know, we kind of talked the stories, how he got started, some funny stories, things like that. Today, I think we can pick up to what I call the point of no return, when you essentially, I would imagine, you know the walls are closing in. Mm-hmm. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Exactly.
What point in your run were you like, I thought I would be going to prison, but now I'm pretty certain, so screw it, I'm just going to go out big?
In the summer of 2003, my daughter was born in June. After her birth, you know, I slowed down a whole lot. My way of thinking was, I need to slow down for my family. I have a girl, you know, in the world now. Maybe there's a chance that I might not get in trouble. You know, local police officers that, you know, were my friends, people in the sheriff's department, people that I've known for a long time, they would say, look, man, your days are numbered. The federal government's watching you.
Right.
I said, you guys have been telling me this for years now. I'm still here. I'm still here. So I felt invincible. I felt that I was going to get away with things, you know, somewhat. But then, you know, after I quit selling drugs, you know, the federal government became blatant in their investigation. And what I mean by blatant is I didn't have to have phone calls or people to tell me that the federal government was watching me. What happened is, you know, I was at restaurants, I was at bars, I was at clubs. People were taking pictures of me that I did not know. Not only that, instead of, you know, taking pictures of me hidden, I started visiting banks where I had accounts at. I'd walk into a bank. Sorry, Mr. Hollamon, your account has been closed. Sorry, Mr. Hollamon, you don't have an account here. This happened numerous times. Not only that, is I had, you know, numerous cars seized, and I thought it was chalked up to the game. I thought somebody stole a vehicle, either a motorcycle or a car or even a boat. I thought someone was just stealing them from me.
It's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, that's it. But, you know, it all started accumulating where people taking pictures of me, people getting arrested around me, property being seized, including bank accounts. So, yeah, the walls were closing in, even though that, you know, I made a decision to scale back, you know, from selling drugs. I didn't completely quit. One of the reasons why I stayed in the game is because I feared to retaliation from upper level drug dealers that were above me. If I quit, they didn't really need me anymore. So what good am I? So
you know too much.
Yeah, know too much. So I still did dirt to keep them happy and to keep a little bit of business going for them where I didn't, you know, go cold turkey.
This point of no return, how long in terms of weeks, days, months until what we're leading up to is the day you got sentenced. So how long was that? Any day now?
So ultimately, I was arrested on January 21st, 2004, and we'll get there in a minute. But my daughter was born 6-7 months prior, June 27th. And from that point forward, it was a dark period for me. And I talk about in the book where I made, you know, all this money and I had all these friends. I was able to do what I wanted to do. After my daughter was born, I got into a dark period. And I say depression. I started using cocaine. I used it before, but I started using it in massive amounts during this time because I wasn't, you know, doing too much. I was trying to be low key, but being low key, I'd, you know, be at my house and I would just snort massive amounts of cocaine. You know, I'm not saying I was snorting an ounce or two every day, but it was close to it. It was close to it, and it didn't matter to me because I had so much of it sitting around,
right? And
I had no responsibilities. I didn't have to go to work. So I would just sit around and snort coke, and it would just make me even more paranoid as time went on. So during these 6 months, these two words kept on ringing in my head: death or prison, death or prison. I knew one of them was imminent. And sometimes when I get on these, you know, cocaine binges, I wasn't suicidal, but I was kind of hoping for it to end.
You didn't care.
I didn't care.
It's almost like a death wish.
Yeah,
you just kind of like okay, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And I was, and a couple of times I did black out, and I woke up like a couple of days later, like, what the hell just happened? 2 days might have passed. So, I mean, this went June, July, August, September, October, November, and when I'm around in January, there's, like I said, there's well over 25, 30 people that are locked up that I know personally, and and they've all got drugs from me, and they weren't all doing federal prison time. But some of them were doing federal time, and the rest were doing state time. So I knew the walls were closing in, and ultimately my day did come on January 21st, 2004, and that's a day that I would never forget.
Yeah, describe that day. What was it like waking up? What was did it feel different? Was it any ordinary day? Take us through that.
Yeah, it did feel different. It was, from the get-go, it was actually an elaborate setup. I was in Wilmington, picking up money, and I had, a few of my old friends that I was seeing, and, they were working with the federal government, and the federal government, they wanted me that day, but they wanted me at a certain place. So I'm in Wilmington, picking up money that day, and, after I wake up, I start going, place to place. I start snorting cocaine. Well, this day it was kind of normal because I started seeing these federal government cars, and they're usually American-made, SUVs. Some Mustangs, but they're usually like Navigators, things like Tahoes.
They're not real discreet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and with blacked out windows, who they were. And like I'm driving around that day in Wilmington, and they're getting beside me, behind me, and I'm just waving my hand, what are y'all doing today? You know what I mean? At least normally you hide from it, So during that day too, a couple of helicopters, flying overhead, and I'm just driving around Wilmington trying to lose the best I can. But the people that I'm there to see, they kept on putting me off and put me off and put me off to get my money. And finally, I got to a point. I said, "Hey, I'm leaving Wilmington in an hour. Come see me." So I meet him at an apartment complex where a supposing friend of mine let me use his apartment, but he was in on with the federal government too. So I go to the apartment, and I'm sitting there. Door opens up, kind of scares me. I look over. This girl runs in, and it's actually my friend's girlfriend. She goes to the refrigerator. She does a couple things, and I'm like, "Hey, you okay?" She's acting real nervous. And by that time, she flies out the door.
She had no poker face.
Yeah, exactly. She ran out the door. And when she ran out, I'm like, holy crap. So I started hearing all these car doors slamming, hear all this noise, and I knew this was it. I knew this was it. And about that time, boom, boom, boom. All these doors busted in, the windows busted in. I mean, all these, federal marshals, all these DEA agents, FBI came in, all with masks, machine guns, busting the door. I lay down. They tackle me, either way, that I have guns on me. So I'm laying down on the floor, and they pick me up off the ground, throw a bag or a shirt or something on my head, and they walk me outside. And when I'm walking outside, I can't see anything, but I can just hear voices. "That's him, that's him, that's him." So they threw me in the SUV, and the back seat, they sit me between, two marshals or two DEA agents, and the whole time, the only thing I could hear is the crackling of radios, and I feel these guns just brushing on me, and they're driving fast as they could with the sirens on. So we were flying downtown Wilmington, just side to side. I still got a bag on my head. I'm going side to side. I'm handcuffed, and these guys aren't really talking, but I can hear their radios, going back and forth, and eventually we get downtown Wilmington, get to the federal courthouse. They drag me out of the car, took the bag off my head, and that was the first lockup that I was at, downtown Wilmington that afternoon. And in the book, I talk about it being a bittersweet experience because when they put me, they locked me up. This was a cell like no other. They put me in a cell at the very top of the federal courthouse. It overlooks the water.
VIP.
The penthouse.
So for that whole night, I stayed up. I had a marshal sleeping outside my cell door, and I'm looking out the water, and in my mind, I'm just like, this is the last time I'm going to see the water.
Yeah.
It's the last time, I'm going to see any kind of water. So I didn't go to sleep the whole night. I stayed up, soaking it all in, and just kind of remembering things that I went through from Carteret County, where I'm from, Wilmington and Myrtle Beach, and, I laugh, I cry, I laugh, I cry, I laugh, I cry. But ultimately, I was glad that it all ended.
That's what I was going to ask. Were you feeling like remorse? Were you feeling like a bit of ease? Were you feeling anger? What was your mindset at the time?
I think an array of emotions would describe me. I think I'm angry for 1 minute. I think I'm sad for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's some regret in there too, especially when I have a 6-month-old daughter.
I was going to ask if your daughter.
Yeah, that was the worst feeling in the world, knowing I'm gonna leave her without a dad. That was tough, and but at the same time, there were some positive emotions. It was like, whew, I don't got to look over my shoulder no more.
Yeah.
It's over. It's it's a new start. It's not the start that people would want, because ultimately I'm gonna face life in prison. But it's a new start, and that's one thing about being in the drug game. I got so far in over my head, I was not prepared for it to go as far as it did. Mm. And it went way too far, and we had a lot of people to get arrested under my case, and it didn't just affect my co-defendants; it affected their families as well. Their sons, their daughters had to do federal prison time, state time. So it didn't just affect the 25, 35 co-defendants that I had. It affected all those families. It was a vacuum effect, and my family would be no different.
Yeah.
It affected my family as well, especially, my 6-month-old daughter. But yeah, I got locked up by the federal government, and, within a couple of weeks, I'm arraigned, and they, put me in front of a judge, and of course they give you no bond. I'm a flight risk, and I heard all these terrible things said about me in court. And some of them were true, some of it wasn't. But I had to wear everything that was said, because I put myself in a position where people could judge me and could say bad things about me. So there was no defending me. It was a lot of stuff that I did and got away with. From selling drugs for numerous years. But, after being arraigned, they appointed me a lawyer, and very casually he sat down with me. He was like, well, you're probably going to get life, but, we'll see what happens in court. And I'm like, whoa, life in prison? He goes, yeah, with the amount of drugs that you had and the arrest record that you had. I was like, sir, I said, everything on me is nonviolent. He goes, yeah, but according to the statutes and mandatory minimums, you're facing life in prison. I say, time out. So I ended up firing this lawyer here, and hired an attorney. And he was still, talking about I could face life in prison. But, it came down a little bit. He goes, between 30 years and life in prison, that's what you're facing with the mandatory minimums. For about a year and a half, I go to all these county jails, across, eastern North Carolina. Tarboro, Raleigh, Wilmington, Greenville, Goldsboro. I mean, I probably went to about 12 to 15 different county jails. And that's what they do. They move you around. And it was funny. I mean, I'd be at a county jail like in Tarboro, and I might meet a guy that I knew him in Atlanta. You know what I mean? He's actually one of my co-defendants. I've only met this guy 2 times. I met a guy from Florida that was in one of the county jails. I haven't seen him in about 3 or 4 years.
Just a familiar face.
Yeah, I mean, well, exactly. But he would end up being a co-defendant. You know what I mean? That's what in the federal government. That's what they do. I mean, so some of these guys I forgot all about, and then I get around them, and this was actually a guy that that got drugs from me, or I got drugs from him in previous years. I mean, these guys were anywhere between Florida to up to Virginia and Maryland. I mean, it was just a bunch of guys that's locked up in eastern North Carolina. But out of all of us, most received 5, 10, 15 years. Ultimately, I would get the most out of everyone. I got 40 years in prison. In 2006, that's when I was sentenced.
When you got arrested and you heard, I'm sure you knew it was coordinated, but did you get a whole nother respect for just how coordinated it? You were talking about you had the stuff over your head and they're like, we got him, we got him. Was there a part of you like, damn, how many people are involved with trying to catch me? You know,
That's what I was going to ask. Is like, how impressive was that feeling that they jumped through so many hoops?
This was coordinated. This was clearly not just random luck. Yeah. They had plotted this out, worked with your co-defendants, all that stuff.
So after you're arrested, and while you're going to court, you get a packet of papers they called your PSI. Pre-sentence investigation, pre-sentence report. But in that report, it details your crime, and it details the federal government's part and how they caught you. So all this stuff I did over years, like it named controlled buys, it named surveillance records, you know, it named times I went to court for this and that. So you know, and to me, it kind of blew my mind. It was like, you know, reading a movie script, where, you know, these people kind of watch me. And like I said, a lot of stuff that I did, but some of it is still embellished. And, you know, I tell people that whoever did my PSI, they should have been a Hollywood screenwriter. I mean, because I'm like, I did that. I was like, I didn't know that I did that, you know. Like I said, it was a lot of truth, and then they added to it.
They had to fill in some of the gaps.
Exactly. So, you know, from following me around all the time. I mean, they had a permanent guy, a permanent U.S. Marshal just in Wilmington to follow me around. So to find out that the federal government, you know, followed me to places like Denver, Colorado, to New York, Florida, the Caribbean islands, it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing that they assigned, you know, a task force to follow me, you know, to so many places. And I hope I showed them a good time. So I mean, and I say that, you know, jokingly, but I said that for real to some marshals. After they arrested me, they're reciting events that I went through, and they're like, "Hey, Chad, do you remember that time you were on a boat and did this and that?" And like me and the marshal would laugh about it. Right. You know, we laugh about it. I mean, of course, I'm facing you know severe consequences. But, you know, I was able to, you know, carry on a joke with them, you know, about it, you know, things I did, things that I went through.
It's like both sides can relax. We got them.
Yeah.
You guys got me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's drop the charade.
Yeah. And most of them were, I had a couple, you know, the D agents were complete pricks to me, but there was a couple marshals, and one of the D agents, I know if I was at a bar and I had a beer, I could drink a beer with them. Yeah. You know, they were, you know, just you know, kind of easy to talk to. And they weren't, you know, busting my balls, you know, like some of them. So, yeah, it was crazy exchanging stories from, you know, the previous, you know, 3 or 4 years about it, and being in that severe consequence. It was nice, kind of laugh about it, or share a smile, because I know I'm going to prison for a long time.
Normal people, we hear county jail. Okay, that's not as bad as state or national or federal.
Prison, yeah.
But for you, there's a lot of guys like you that are awaiting their sentencing and stuff. So
and most people are. You're awaiting your sentence, so there's this uncertainty of your future. So you're hostile towards anything. You're hostile towards people that you're on the phone with. You would call loved ones, and you might get mad at them at the smallest thing. You know, they didn't call your lawyer. They didn't send you money for commissary. You're just mad at the world because you don't know what's about to happen to you. So you kind of lash out of anything and everything that you can. So yeah, it was a scary time for me when I went into a deep depression because I didn't know what was going to happen to me, and then coming off these drugs, and then, you know, from being this person, you know, from making this money, and then from, you know, yanked from a society that I'll never be part of again, most likely. It was scary. So I went through county jail for 1.5 years. And I got on these antidepressants, on this medication called Seroquel and like Wellbutrin, and I took it, you know, and I took advantage of the prescription. I would stock up on it, and then I would take it, and I would sleep for like 20 hours a day, 22 hours a day. That's what I did. I slept. That's why I can't remember, you know, half of what happened. I stayed in a coma for the most part. I mean, just I woke up, ate, went back to sleep.
You're treating it almost like it's a long flight. Like I'm just sleep and wait till I arrive.
Exactly.
It's just that's wild.
Yeah. So finally, I went to court in 2006, and it didn't get any better. I went to court, went in front of the judge, and my lawyer said some things, trying to make me not as a bad person as the prosecutor was trying to make me out to be. And the prosecution said a lot of bad things about me. I sit there, my mom's behind me, kid's mother, my daughter Zoe, brother, grandma, they're all behind me, dad. They're there to support me. I mean, I was cool with that. I want them there somewhat, but I knew what they're about to hear and see. And I went from the judge and I prepared the speech for him, and I read the speech, but I wouldn't know what the hell I said. It came out mumbled and incoherent, and the judge, read through it, and he started asking me questions. And make a long story short, I wasn't humble about what I did. So he pretty much told me, well, you have 40 years to humble yourself. So told me that, okay, that's my fate. I'm going to do 40 years in prison. My daughter will be 40-some years old when I got out. I'd have grandchildren by then.
It's amazing how your mind starts projecting
instantly. Yeah. So,
and you alluded this in the book as well. So, I mean, if you guys get a chance, I mean, there's much more detail in the book about the situation. Yeah. We're just skimming over it right now. But when that hit, you said that you had, okay, well, my daughter will be 40, but was there like a rush? Did you feel like a rush of like blood, like just anger, or were you just like, okay, it's over?
Disbelief. Disbelief at that time.
Because you were what, 25, 26, something?
I was 26 at that time, maybe even 27, because this was in 06. So yeah, let's say I was 27. Been in county jail for a while, and to be honest with you, you want it over with. You're ready to go to prison. I'm tired of sleeping 20 hours a day. I want to go try to be productive. Even if it's for the rest of my life, I want to be somewhere I can see the sunshine, where I can eat some, kind of regular food, where I could write letters with a pen, where I could read hardback books. I wanted to get to prison.
Some kind of routine.
Yeah, I was ready for that. So after the judge sentenced me, I look over at the prosecution table, and the head DEA agent, he looked at me and he goes, bye-bye, bye-bye. It threw me off. I wasn't mad to get arrested. I wasn't mad that I got 40 years in prison. I wasn't mad that the prosecutor said all these crazy and nasty things about me. But I got mad at this guy.
It's a little pencil push.
Yeah. So I'm shackled head to toe, around my waist. And when he waved at me, I go there to get him. I just want to jump on him. Hey, the best I can. I don't do too much to him. I want to jump on him. But as soon as I made a move to him, the marshals came on me, tackled me, pushed me up against the desk. My mom, she started screaming in the background. My cousin started screaming in the background. I look over and there's papers and chairs all thrown on the floor. And they pick me up and they start carrying me to the door. And I look over and like I said in the book, I have my grandma, 80 years old at the time. She's getting frisked by the FBI. My cousin's being carried out. My mom's being told to calm down. And, here I am. They're there, the witness. Another, probably the bottom of my life. And that hurt. I hated for them to be there just to see me get sentenced. But now I done made an ass of myself. And it made it even worse. So this was their last impression of me, So they took me through double doors. They threw me in a cell, and I start banging on these bars. I didn't talk about this in the book, but I start banging on the cell doors as hard as I could, and I turned to a cage animal for about 3 days. And I say that because for 3 days, every object that they gave me or I had access to, I would throw it at the guards. I'd bang on the bars. Anyone that came around, I would talk shit to. It took me 3 days to process what was about to happen to me. 40 years. I had to do 40 years in prison. So ultimately, they transferred me to a holdover in Virginia, and I stayed there for about 3 weeks till a prison bus finally come picks me up. This is my first taste of federal prison. Bus picks me up. I'm wearing a paper suit, paper shoes. It is crazy when I'm wearing, but of course I'm shackled head to toe. And they put me on this bus that looks like a Greyhound bus from the outside. But we get on the inside, it's a lot different. I mean, the first thing you notice is all these cages and contraptions on it. And then you look over and it's all these serious dudes on this bus. I don't know nobody on this bus. So I get on that bus and I walk, find a seat by myself and, sit there. And that's the thing, about this, bus ride. They took us from Virginia all the way to Atlanta. And this whole bus ride, not one man said anything. So the entire 6-7 hours, we're just cruising up the road, and, nobody said anything. They might cut the radio on for a few minutes. The guards might, but all you hear is chains on people's bodies. You hear the guards talking up front. There's one in the back with a shotgun. So it was kind of an eerie scene, but I think a lot of guys on that particular bus ride just got sentenced, and they were going to the unknown.
Everybody's processing it.
Everybody's processing it. And we finally get to Atlanta. Then finally people start talking a little bit. This prison was there since the late or early 1900s. People like Al Capone, and there's all these infamous criminals. I mean, if you did federal prison time, you've been to Atlanta at least one time.
And it's got a name. Big Sandy is what?
No. This is actually at USP Atlanta. It's a processing center.
Got it.
So when you get there, they ask you all these medical questions, and then they end up finding out what prison you're going to. So what it is, it's like think of like this. You ever fly Delta? They have like a hub like in Atlanta. Well, all the planes fly to Atlanta, then you all get on several flights and go from there. That's how it is with prisons. You've got 3 main hubs. You got one in California, you have one in Oklahoma City, you have one in Atlanta. East Coast, central part of the country, and also West Coast. So all these inmates from the eastern seaboard and everywhere else, that's where they go to. And when you get there, it's just this old prison. They have cats there. The reason we have the cats there because they have rats there. So the cats kill the mice and the rats. It's just a crazy place to go. They give these orange gel clothes. Nothing fits, and you see all these serious guys, and they're somebody. I mean, all these tattoos on them. People missing limbs. There's some biker gangs. They're in gangs. So it was a crazy place to me to see all these all these people. So I ended up staying there for about 5 days, and they were like, "Hey, you're going to USP Big Sandy." And when you're in a federal prison system, you do not want to go to a USP. You don't. Reason being, the 7 to 10 USPs that they have right now, they're the most volatile. They're the most violent. That's where all the drama happens. I mean, you can go to a medium, you might see a fight every now and then. You can go to a low, you will rarely see a fight. Or you go to a camp, you will never see a fight at a camp. But the USPs are the worst of the worst, and this is where all the drama happens. And it sucks for a person like me because I was sentenced to 40 years in prison because of the kingpin status, but I had no violence whatsoever on my record. So why was I going to a USP? Why? Got on the bus, and I'm around 30, 40 really serious dudes.
They got some violence on their record.
They more than likely, and I'm a bit of an oddity on there. I mean, I think I had one tattoo at the time.
You didn't look like you look now.
No, I had a couple. I had one tattoo then, but on that prison bus, I mean, you're around guys that are just covered in tattoos. So this is probably the longest 6-7 hours of my life. Riding up to USP Big Sandy, which is nestled in the mountains of eastern Kentucky. And when I was on that bus, I heard little snippets of, they call this Murder Mountain. You know, all these other things about it. Hey, I heard a dude got his head chopped off here. I'm sitting in the back seat, or I'm sitting like in the middle somewhere, you know, towards the back, and I'm hearing all these rumors about all these people that, you know, that have gotten hurt here, the murders that have happened there, and the ongoing violence in this place. And here I am, little old Chad from Emerald Isle, going to a USP. Why in the hell do I got to go through this? What did I do, you know, to deserve to go to USP? And that was the questions going through my head, you know, questioning God, you know, question my fate, just, you know, question society, you know, had all these, you know, question marks. And you asked me earlier how I felt, you know, when after I got arrested, was I regretful? You know, my emotions. I was angry then. On that bus ride, I was angry that I had to go. I was about to go through some things. I didn't know what I had to go through, but I know my life was about to get real serious, real quick. And I'm gonna have to make a lot of decisions in the next, not upcoming days, but hours.
How long after when you were on that bus ride, or when you got to Big Sandy, did you say, "Fuck being a bad guy"? You know, it seemed. I know we talked in the last episode. It was cool. You know, it seemed they had the girls, but then that moment, was there a moment where you're like,
or was it, you know, I actually got to be the bad guy I've always looked up to?
Far from it. I didn't want to be the bad guy then. Only thing I was worried about, you know, is staying safe. That was my main concern. I wasn't worried about being a tough guy. I didn't want to be a tough guy at all then, you know. But these two words that would stick with me for a while: embrace consequences. What I did in my previous life for selling drugs and doing all these, you know, crazy and wild things, embrace consequences. I had to face these consequences for things that I did from my past, and I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had to go through it to get this part of my life over with. It was part of it. So it was a long 6, 7, 8 hour bus ride to the, you know, mountains of Kentucky, and we got there, and it got scarier. It got scary for me. You know, they call your name off. And well, they call your name out. You stepped off the bus. A marshal makes you open your mouth, pats you down, make sure you have no contraband on you. And the first thing you see walking that building is guns, you know, pointing down at you. And I'm like, holy crap, this is it. This is it. So, you know, I'll walk in the belly, you know, of the prison, and from then, you know, they have all these people that ask you questions, medical questions. So if they ask you these security questions, they actually give you an opportunity to check in. And what check-in means is, are you feared for your safety? Are you scared for your life? And I'm like, no, I'm not scared of it. I mean, should I be? There's something I'd be fearful of.
Is this
so they ask you those questions? Yeah. So, you know, and they asked me about my paperwork. I said, you know, everything's okay. So, but, you know, I would soon find out that the 30 to 40 guys that came with us, 10 of them checked in. They didn't want to go here. They would rather spend time in solitary confinement for months, if not a year, other than face Big Sandy. So, like I said earlier about choices, I would have to make choices from the get-go. And that was the first choice that I had to make. All right, do you want to come in this compound? Because it's about to get real serious. And, you know, excuse my language, but I have this, you know, convicts have 3 choices in every matter: fight, fuck, or flee. And at that time, you know, I could have chose flee as checking in. And to solitary confinement, but I chose fight that day, and I would ultimately choose fight for the rest of my sentence. But if I would start off on the wrong foot by fleeing, the rest of my sentence might have went really bad. So that was a crucial decision that I had to make, and other inmates had to make whenever they, you know, step off that bus. Yeah. And I was about to enter a world that hard to describe. I do it the best I can to it in the book. Something that I couldn't imagine, You watch these movies and everything else, and that's what I had in my head, all these movies and everything that I've heard. Yeah, so, what was I about to see? What was I about to witness? And after a few hours, we were given a bedroll, a cell number, and the unit number, and we were led to the compound at USP Big Sandy.
Good luck.
Pretty much.
Now, when you got there, did you recognize or did you see anyone that you knew out and about? Like, what was the six degrees of separation from with Kevin Bacon's whole thing? Did you see someone you knew?
No, I didn't see.
You were just all kind of like,
yeah. I wasn't even looking for anyone that I knew. Because in time, once I became what you say, I was green. I had nobody from the system.
Yeah.
After you're locked up for a while, you go look at people, and if you don't know people, you ask so and so. Do you know this person, that person? It's all on reputation. Right. And a lot of times, when you're in the system for more than 3 or 4 years, you gain a reputation. Dudes know who you are before you even get there. But in essence, when I first got there, I'm Chad Hollamon. Who the fuck is Chad Hollamon? No one knew me. So that was the genesis of my arrival in federal prison. But saying that, I will. Movies have one thing right. It is a racial society, and I say that because when I walked in, black guys might have looked me up and down, but the white guys, whew, they come to you. What's your name? Where'd you come from? Who you run with? What you in here for? This, that. I'm like, good God, it's a lot of questions, but they try to fill you out. They don't know you.
It's like a whole nother interview process. It
is, and this one counts a whole lot more than the other one I just went through. Right. So they're pretty much just asking you all these questions, and they're being pretty nice about it, because they don't know who I am yet. I don't know who they are, but they're being stern. And after my first talk with them. They actually brought me some commissary. They brought me toothbrushes and toothpaste. And, a guy named Deacon, I talk about in the book, he brings me a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, this prison thing might not be so bad. But then after they gave me everything, they said, hey, you got to have your paperwork within about 2 or 3 weeks. And they said, look, if you're fucked up, don't take this stuff. And I was like, all right. So, they gave me everything, which that side of humanity, for all these convicts to display, I'm like, this might not be so bad. And I learned everyone's name, and I learned that everyone had a nickname in prison. It was like Coon,
I was gonna say
Rabbit.
Your book was like it was all animal nicknames.
Bear, Crow. I'm like, what the hell? Then if you don't have that, they might call you black. They might call you white. They might red. And they're like, what's your name? I'm like, Chad. Yeah, but what they call you? I said, they call me Chad. But what's your nickname? I said, man, they call me Chad. That's what everybody calls me, man. And Deacon, he made a comment. He was like, well, before it's all said and done, you're gonna have a nickname. I was all right, that's cool. We'll see if I have a nickname or not. But that was when I first got there, and I was super tired. And I just told the guys, I said, look, we'll talk more tomorrow, but I just want to go to sleep, man. No offense. And I met my cellmate, a young kid from the mountains here in North Carolina, and about a kid named by the name of Red. And I jumped on that top bunk. Didn't make the bunk up at all. Just jumped there and just poof, I passed out. I passed out and I don't think I dreamed or anything. I just slept for a good 8-10 hours until the morning.
That's insane.
So
I'm sitting here thinking.
I'm just thinking like that sleep has got to be, even though you're in
it's
potentially the worst place in the world. Was there some peace with that sleep? Because I don't have to sit and like keep getting hurry up and wait, county jail to county jail, processing center. This place sucks, but it's my new normal.
And on top of that, you're not looking over your shoulder anymore, or in that anticipation of.
Or maybe you were. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a different type of anticipation.
Like, how was that sleep? Was it just like an exhale?
I don't know. I don't remember. I just want to go. I was just tired, man.
I was like, y'all keep talking this shit. I was just tired.
Yeah, we're getting philosophical.
Yeah, yeah. I was just tired and wanted to sleep. I mean, you know, upcoming nights, you know, it'd be different. But for that night alone, I just want to go to sleep and wake up and hoping while I was asleep, you know, it'd be all a dream.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I would ultimately, you know, wake up in that same cell that I fell asleep in, and I would start my first day in prison, you know, from there.
Were there days like that you felt like a dream? I remember playing college football, and we'd have kickoff, and I would be out on the field taking my steps back, and it didn't feel real. And then I hit it, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a game. It was like you'd have existential, weird, like maybe, just maybe this was a bad dream, or maybe this, maybe this is just kidding. I'm going to wake up and laugh with all my friends back in North Carolina.
Often, you know, I would find out later in my sentence that these are called, you know, lucid or vivid dreams.
Right.
And, you know, they occur with, you know, with most people. And it's almost like a reoccurring movie, you know, in your thoughts. What happens is, you know, we become so used to doing things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like yours is so repetitive as football. And, you know, football. And after years of being incarcerated and, you know, learning more about vivid dreams, you know, people can actually figure solutions out to the problems they have in their life.
Yeah.
You know, the term, let me sleep on it. Let me sleep on it. And you can actually sleep on a problem, and, you know, some kind of, you know, solution or something comes to you while you're sleeping. And
fresh mind.
A fresh mind, and you wake up like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do here. So yeah, it was, you know, having these dreams. Yeah, dreams of the outside, you know, because, you know, that would be on my mind a lot, you know, doing different things, and, you know, I'd wake up. Damn, I'm still here in prison.
Back to reality.
Yeah, I'm still here in prison, and you know, been for a long time, on and off. You know, like you know, I was incarcerated for almost 18 years, so it's a lot of, you know, a lot of ups and downs. You know, going through a lot. Yeah, and a lot of times, like you just said, I wish it was a dream that I would have woke up, you know, from. But it wasn't, and I had to deal with what's in front of me.
Yeah.
So fast forward just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to the point where you start. We had talked in the pre-interviews and stuff about you actually taking up writing, and you found enjoyment out of it, and it was kind of like a peace of mind. How long into your sentence did that before you started writing?
Almost 10 years. 10
years.
Yeah, I think you know, it took almost a decade for me to start writing. But what made me a decent writer was the experiences I had in prison, the things I had to go through.
Because now you got 10 years of content.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, the content, that's your word. Mine's experiences, things I had to see and witness, you know, things, you know, that weren't so pretty.
Trauma.
Yeah. You know, just in being at a penitentiary, you know, one of the worst ones in USP, Big Sandy. You know, you saw a lot of things, and witnessed a lot of things while I was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took about 10 years, I think, for me to, you know, to start writing. You know, and I would start with books, things like that, you know, short stories.
You got nothing but time.
Yeah, yeah, and, you know, that was one good thing about, I mean, writing. It was not only therapeutic, but it helped pass time.
It feels productive. You can see pages filling up. And
yeah.
You so when you first got there, step number one is survival. Like, you know, how long did it take you to learn? Because there's a lot of prison content on YouTube. A lot of it now that people have that just YouTube wasn't around when you were getting sentenced.
Right.
Now, if you're getting sentenced, you can go online and see, like, okay, the do's and don'ts and those things. You, in the book, you talk about someone. Was that Deacon who took you under his wing and kind of said, "Hey, we sit here, we don't do this," because there's all kinds of, I guess, politics is the word in prison that seems kind of menial on the outside, but it's life or death in prison.
And I learned it's got some value on the outside too. I mean, it's called the Convict Code.
Yeah.
And Deacon took me under his wing, but it was Crow that actually schooled me. And Crow, took me like 2 days to get used to him. And Crow's this guy that he lost his arm in a gunfight. He lost an arm, but he had a sense of humor about him. He would just make you laugh all day long. I mean, and it was just so fun to be around him. But when he's teaching me these lessons, like, he's making me laugh while he's doing it. So I don't know where it's coming from, but after a couple of days, I said, man, he's just a genuinely good person and wants, you know, good for me. But that was his way, you know, towards me. He ended up being a little protective, you know what I mean? You know, if you know, something happened, he would always take up for me, and he would say, hey, he's new, give him a break, give him a break. But then when he did that to guys, he'd make them laugh too. So they were like, okay, you know. So, you know,
it diffuse situation.
Yeah, exactly. Really quick, where it could have been serious with other people. Like Deacon, the way he talks, he's just a real blunt individual. He's just a real big dude, and when he talks, it's all offensive. But like when Crow talks, he's just like, you know, no matter who the person was, man, he could make you laugh. So like you say, he diffused the situation. And there's when I first meet him, he sat across from the table from me in a chow hall. And he was like, you know why I sat across from me? And I look at his nub, and I was like, well, you need a hand to eat? He starts laughing. He goes, that was good. He goes, that was a good one. He goes, nah. He goes, I sat here because I'm going to watch your back. He goes, if I'm sitting here and I got your back, and you're looking at me, you see my back. If someone's coming up, you let me know. And he goes, all right, how you take a shit?
I read that.
I said, how do I take a shit? I sit down. He goes, no. How you take a shit? Hey, he goes, how you got your clothes? I said, man, I pull my pants down my ankles, man. You know, what ways are there to take a shit? He goes, all right, when you take a shit, I want you to pull your pants off, but have one side around your ankle. He goes, don't have both of them on your ankles, because someone comes in, you're gonna fall down. So have one off. He goes, you promise me? I said, I promise you, Crow. All right. And this is like the first day that I met him. So, but from that point forward, he's teaching me all these lessons, you know, about the convict code. You know, keeping my word, doing what I say. And he would tell me, you know, like things like, hey, if you tell somebody you're going to be on the rec yard at 3 o'clock, you be there at 3 o'clock. He goes, if you're not there at 3 o'clock, you got to have a damn good excuse. Right. And, you know, if you bet someone, you pay it. No questions asked, because there are going to be consequences if you don't pay that debt. And he goes, I would recommend not gambling. He goes, but I understand, you know, where you're at. He goes, you're going to do it some. So all these things, you know, but not hanging out with certain people, not hanging out in a certain area. You know, it was all these things that some of it didn't make sense to me. But after time, I was like, wow, I've actually kept more, you know, out of trouble, you know, because of him. And, you know, and some of it, you know, like, for example, you know, I told you it's a racial society. You sit with whites if you're white, and you sit with blacks if you're black. It's that simple. Now, there is some grays area in there, but as Crow broke it down to me, he goes, look, I've sat with a black guy in county jail. He goes, it happens. He goes, but the reason why we don't do it here, Chad, is because if you sat with a black inmate and you guys got in an argument, or God forbid a fight, then what happens? I said, I don't know, Crow. He goes, it's now a racial issue. Now it's not only you and him, it's who you run with and who he runs with. Now everybody's involved. So he goes, for the sake of the yard and for the safety of the yard, that's why we don't sell outside of our race. That's why we don't sit with black guys in the chow hall. He goes, it keeps violence down to a minimum. And if you notice, the administrations, they kind of allow it. So yeah, he taught me a lot of lessons, and you know, ultimately it would get me through, you know, while I was in the penitentiary.
It's kind of the best way to solve a problem is to avoid one in the first place.
Yeah, be proactive, being proactive.
Now, we're from Eastern North Carolina, majority white, and I've heard this a lot of white inmates when they get into prison. Now suddenly whites, you're the minority. Mm-hmm. How was that? I mean, not from a like, oh, this is weird, but just from a like, if shit goes down. Yeah. You can do some quick math based on what was that the first time you were a minority like that? You said you came up through Goldsboro when you were younger, but I've always wondered that because you see prison documentaries. There's a couple whites. There's not many.
It happens. I mean, but when you're around, individuals that have, I would say, your best interests in mind, but if you got 8, 10 guys that you can count on, then no matter what, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And, you felt comfortable. I mean, if I'm around people like Deacon and Crow and like Hollywood, I talk about in the book, and some of these other guys that are just kind of crazy as shit, and no love, you feel okay. You feel okay. I was never, intimidated or worried about another race. If anything, I was more worried about my own race.
Right.
That was where it came from because, for the most part, the opposite race did not want problems because it would start so much other stuff. Now, things happened, but for the most part, you had to worry about your own people, preying on you and doing different things, stealing from you because they knew what you had, owing you money. So a lot of times it was your own race.
Was there a point where you became the Crow? I know over years that you traveled to different prisons, but did you become that person?
Yeah, I try to lead guys in the right direction.
Which almost kind of like is leading to where you want to go now in the future.
Yeah, for the sake of the yard, and I did care about individuals that came there, but for the sake of the yard, to keep things down, when a new guy came in, you kind of schooled him a little bit because you were there for a while, you knew the consequences, and it helped the next person out. You did have some knuckleheads that come in like, I got this. They think they're Billy Badass, and then 2 weeks later, something happened. They get cracked upside the head with a baseball bat. They get stabbed, something like that. A lot of times you see it coming. And this was...
They become the cheerleaders from the longest yard.
With a little pocket sticking out.
You follow me around. I guess I didn't become Crow, but I try to help out as much as possible. When a guy came in, and it got to a point where I would speak to someone when they first came in for a few minutes, introduce myself, but I would always wait 3 to 5 weeks at least watching this inmate because when these guys first come in, they're not their true selves yet. It takes a little bit for their true selves to come out, and a lot of times the guys got comfortable, and they'll get loud and boisterous, and they start running up debts, and you're like, this guy's trouble here. You see him running up debts, buying heroin, other drugs, run up commissary debts. You knew it was about to happen, and that was one thing about being in prison. For a while, you become good at seeing human nature.
So you can tell just by watching guys who are going to do well, who's worth putting time into, who's not, and early on you were approached. You mentioned how racially segregated it is. There's strength in numbers. Were you approached at any point to join up with it's like whites first, and then within whites there are different gangs, I'm assuming. Were you approached for that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the reason why you weren't really fearful of the opposite race is because every white guy on the yard, they know if something happens, you have to do something with them. Now, some of the black inmates, they might just go, well, I'm not in that gang there. I'm not doing anything. But the white inmates, that's why they carry such a ferocious reputation is if something happened, it don't matter if you're this gang or that gang, if something happened to these whites over here, it's an all-white thing no matter what. Hands down, everybody's on board with that. But saying that, I'll talk about Deacon and how I got under his wing. Deacon was no gang member. Deacon was his own gang. I say that because, when I first met Deacon, he's just big dude, and we don't have weights, but he's just big old bare-chested guy. His hair's down, he keeps it in a ponytail past his butt. He just walks around looking like that. He just looks like a badass. So not only does he look like a badass, but he had this rumor that there's this gang called the Dirty White Boys. Mm-hmm. And dirty white boys are known for shaking people down, including their own race, and doing some things against other people. So the rumor had it that Deacon fought 3 of them at the same time and just beat the living crap out of them. This was in Beaumont, Texas, at a time in the late 90s when Beaumont, Texas was the most violent USP there was. So, yeah, this dude, he walked around like he was a shit. He probably was. I wasn't going to test him. So he was.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. So he was my, so-called shot caller. That's who I went under. But in time, like everywhere else, we tend to segregate ourselves, not only with our own race, but who we relate to the most. After about 6 to 8 months there, I started seeing things, and I started agreeing a lot with these guys that ran with the Aryan Circle, which is a prison gang born out of Texas. That's where most of them are from. Right. And when people say Aryan, there's so many facets to the Aryan thing. There's Aryan Nation, Aryan Circle, Aryan Brotherhood. There's so many things. The big one is Aryan Brotherhood. I mean, that's the one out in California. That's the most notorious one.
Called the Brand or something.
The Brand, exactly. That's the biggest one, and they're usually a lot of the badasses. But anyhow, I fell in with the guys that were in the Aryan Circle, and not only, I didn't, agree with some of the things, but most things, not only was I was friends with, but we like making money. And so there's this guy named Danny Boy that I got close to. We end up, running gambling tickets. We end up making hooch and selling it. We just had all ways to make money, but these are the guys I hung out with. We hung out at the rec yard. We played handball together. Did some other things. They were just guys I kicked it with. Well, the whole time that I'm hanging out with them, slowly, surely, there was like, hey, man, you want to get a patch? A patch is a tattoo. I was like, I'm good, man. I'm good. So my whole mentality is like, if I wanted to be told what to do, I would have joined the Army a long time ago. I didn't want to be told what to do, but these guys are my friends, and that's who I ran with. So for months, a year, these are my friends that I hung out with. I like to think they would have had my back if anything happened. Thankfully nothing did. But they were my friends, and I would ultimately join the Aryan Circle in time. But for a good year or two, these are just the guys I hung with. They were my friends, just like Deacon and Crow. These guys that I click with. In time, I would join, but for the first year or two, though, I was kind of under Deacon, so to speak.
It was almost like an audition.
Yeah.
While you're around there, making money and stuff like that.
So I got a quick question about that whole relationship dynamic with people, with your friends in prison compared to the prison friends outside of prison. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Like, because you went from the story about your so-called friends that were actually working for the feds to now, do you think the guys do you still keep in touch with the guys that you were with the Aryans, or
what do you mean by working for the feds?
Didn't you say that like they were your friends were?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. They're my friends if they were working for the
but
and I did say that. And I did say that. No. Do I keep up with them still?
Yeah, like the ones in prison, because they seem like they were probably more real family or friends than
somewhat. But the problem is, I think most of them are dead right now. I mean, I would say right now, but a lot of them have died. I mean, and if I would never turn my life around, later on, I would have been one of them right too. And later on, I'll tell you a story how my life got saved, and my sanity got saved from stepping away from the gang. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I was at Aryan Circle for probably 3 or 4 years. But at Big Sandy, that's who I ran with, and things were doing good. Big Sandy was a violent place, and I had Aryan Circle, to have my back at all times. It was a kind of a crazy time for Big Sandy. We all heard of USP Leavenworth. Mm-hmm. We all heard of Marion. Well, in 2005, 2006, they closed Marion, and they closed Leavenworth from U.S. penitentiaries to mediums. So what that meant is those badasses who were at Leavenworth, they had to go somewhere. You couldn't be at Leavenworth anymore because now it's a medium security prison. Where did they go? we got a third of them at Big Sandy. That's where they went. So we got a third of the people from Marion, a third of the people from Leavenworth. So it was already a violent yard, but when those guys hit the yard, it became more violent, more volatile. A lot of stuff would happen. You know, during a typical night, it would be like going to see a freaking, almost a concert. I mean, because just so much stuff happened outside. And when something happened on the rec yard, first they get on that bullhorn, and they'll say, lay on the ground, attention, lay on the ground, lay on the ground. And if people want to start laying down, they start throwing percussion grenades out there. And these things are loud. I mean, if they throw one out and it hits, boom, it'll you hit the ground easily. And if that don't work, they'll get guns out, which has rubber bullets. So they'll start shooting people with those rubber bullets to calm the situation down. Now, if that don't work, they break out real guns. I was on the yard, it's 2 times, when that happened. But, during that summer of, I think it was 2007, every day, I was seeing someone getting stabbed. I saw someone that got stabbed. What I mean by that is I didn't see the stabbing myself, but I saw them walk away from it, or I saw a body laying on the ground before the cops did. I saw a lot of beatings. You didn't see too many fights, but if there was a fight, it was 5-6 against 1. For the most part, and saw a guy, with his face cut open with a razor blade. Saw a couple eyes poked out. We talked about the incident with the eyeballs coming out. A guy named Tool. So it was just all this violence. Finally, the USP, Big Sandy, the FBI came in 2008 and closed it down. We had 3 murders within 10 days. They said enough's enough. They closed it down, and we were all locked down for months and months while the FBI came in. They searched every cell. They brought us out. They interviewed us, and they got rid of the bad guys. But that's what was crazy to me, because you got rid of the bad guys. Well, this is the worst place you could possibly be, so you're taking the bad guys out and just going to make some other place bad. I mean, look, there's less good guys in here. Take the good guys out, let them go somewhere.
Let the bad guys kill each other.
Let the bad guys kill each other. But that's what they did. They came and took some of the gang members out, try to quell some of the violence. And they did do some good, because they closed the rec yard down, where you couldn't go outside anymore unless it was your day. And not only that, is that you couldn't go outside anymore, on the sidewalk. You had to go in this corridor. So anyhow, we're locked down 4 or 5 months. And then finally, after months of not taking a shower, after months of eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and bologna sandwiches, they take us off lockdown. When we come out, everybody's all skinny. Everybody's got beards, long hair, and everybody's looking crazy. We're glad to be out. We can get on the phones. I call my loved ones. And not only that, is we're going to get our first hot meal of the day, or of the last 5 months. They called chow, and everybody's got little kids. Everybody runs up to the door, and we're all, going there. And guards are like, walking the line. There's guards everywhere because of the murders happen. So there's guards from all across the country that are, for security reasons. So I kind of, ignore that. Cool, I'm going to chow. So I'm walking to chow, get my tray of pancakes, and the guards, there we go. They tell everybody where to sit. You sit here, you sit here. But what happened is, we're on society. We choose where we sit at. They were trying to tell white guys to sit with black guys to sit with white guys. Well, nobody was having it. I mean,
desegregation.
Exactly. We're like, fuck you. You're not going to do that to us. You want this tray? Have it. So they would just throw the trays on the ground. Pick the tray up. I'm not picking it up. You pick it up, motherfucker. So it was just hostile situation. But I'm eating my pancakes. You didn't get my pancakes. I'm eating. So eat my pancakes. And I got fast can be, and I walk out of chow, and I walk out, and one of the guards, Lieutenant Duck, I remember his name. Lieutenant Duck said, "Holland, come here." So I went there and told him, I said, "What's up?" He goes, I'm gonna pat you down. So I turned around. He started to pat me down. He started getting real aggressive with me. And finally I turned around. I said, "What are you doing?" Then he jerked me back. He goes, "You need to stand still." I was like, "All right, go ahead, do your thing." So he started patting me down, and then he started going down my pants. And I'm like, "Man, what are you doing, man?" And then he pulled my pubic hairs. He pulled my pubic hairs. I said, "Man, you got to stop this now." And when I said that, he goes in to grab me. And when he did that, I went, boom, busted him in the head. Bam! He fell out. But as soon as I did that, I seen every officer close by just running to me. They had a chance to tag me. I started falling down for them to tag me. So they tackled me to the ground. They're beating the crap out of me. I'm trying to kick, just get them off of best I can, and that made him worse. So as they got me down, the officers that I knocked out, he wakes up and he goes, he's got a knife on him. So they ripped off all my clothes. So I'm butt ass naked, just sitting there. I'm like, I have nothing on me, man. Nothing on me whatsoever. So as I'm laying there, they made the other inmates back away. And these Muslims, of all people, that I was cool with, of all the people that was around the area, they helped me out the most. These Muslim inmates, they stepped to the guards and was like, hey, get off of them, get off of them, get off of them. So it actually took about 10, 12 guards to get them away. But it released some of the pressure on me, and then the guards said, we got to get them out of here. So the guards picked me up. I'm butt-ass naked, and they just start carrying me down the hallway. And I'm butt naked. All right, I look over. Actually, I look over to my right. I look over to my right, and that's the chow hall. Well, every inmate in the chow hall, they got their face to the glass, like looking, what the hell is going on? And I'm just looking, hey! It's like, they carry me to the chute, butt-ass naked. And it'd been my first experience in solitary confinement. And keep in mind, I've already been locked down for the previous 5 months. So shit was about to get real for me.
So that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
We'll pick up where this was going to be like a 3-part series, but with just so much information, it's going to have to move to 4. Mm-hmm. I know you got a trip coming up, and we'll get back to it. But guys, go ahead and pick that book
And my
up.
probation officer approves of it. Thank you very much.
Let's go to Solder Pad.
So if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and pick up the book. You follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Small Town Big Sound.
We got the links in the description.
Yeah, and link is in the description of this. So I highly recommend it. It's a good read. Chad, part 2.
Look forward to
Done.
it.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So, guys, hit subscribe.
Smash the like button.
We'll see you on the next episode.